I am female 36 and married to the love of my life, female 36 K. We met when we were 17. She was out and proud while I was still in the closet, so we didn't start dating until I came out at 21. We got married in 2019 and have an adopted 4-year-old son, Jack. This becomes relevant in a minute. My sister, female 27, Sarah, has a long-term boyfriend, male 28, Steve, who the family cannot stand. They've been together for 8 years, and the whole family has hated him from the first time we met him. He is rude, obnoxious, arrogant, and all in all, a crappy human being. He's also someone who likes to claim that he is just honest, but if someone is honest back to him, he flips out and sulks like a toddler. In fact, my toddler is better behaved than him. He isn't hurtful to Sarah and doesn't direct these comments towards her. It's just the rest of us. He's actually a good partner to her and treats her well, which is his one redeeming quality. My dad and Kay hate him the most and will do anything to avoid him at family gatherings. Kay usually just ignores him and brushes off anything he says to her as she doesn't like conflict. However, there have been a few occasions when she has said something back, but it's usually said in a joking manner, which amuses my dad to no end. My mom is a peacekeeper and will do anything to avoid drama, so she just changes the topic whenever he starts. But she and my grandparents all hate him just as much as the rest of us. Sarah is the only one that obviously doesn't hate him. Our son's birth mother, Tess, was Kay's best friend, who sadly died in 2021. This was a real shock as she had an underlying heart condition that she didn't know about and simply went to sleep one night and never woke up. Jack had been left alone in his cot all day, screaming for his mom before Kay got worried that Tess wasn't answering her texts and went to their house to see if she was okay. She found Jack in his cot and Tess in her bed. We adopted Jack as no one in Tess's family was in a position to take him in. We raise him as our own, but he knows who Tess is. Obviously, this is a very sensitive topic for Kay as it was so traumatic for her and Jack. Now, on to what happened last weekend. It was the anniversary of Tess's death on Saturday, so Kay, Jack, and I went to visit her grave. Kay is always quiet after going to see her, and this time of year is especially hard for her. On Sunday, we had a family gathering at my parents' house. These happen every couple of months as just a catch-up for everyone. At first, nothing was out of the ordinary. Kay and my dad were off to the side talking as usual, only I could see that Kay was obviously struggling. So my dad and she went for a walk so she could clear her head. This is something they have done before, so nothing too unusual. However, Steve had an issue with this and asked why they had left and why he wasn't invited to walk with them. I explained about Tess and that Kay just needed a minute. This wasn't good enough for Steve, though, and he said she should have gotten over it by now. At this, my granddad, who is naturally a very quiet guy, said that his best friend had died over 20 years ago, and he still had days where he missed him so much it hurt. You don't just get over something like that. Steve shut up at that. Kay and my dad got back, and she was in a much better mood. We all sat down at the table for our late lunch and started chatting. Everything was fine at first until Steve started trying to butt into Kay's conversation with my granddad. When it was obvious that they weren't going to include him, he very loudly stated, "This is nonsense. She's getting all the attention of everyone because her friend died 3 freaking years ago. Get over it, for frick's sake. We're all sick of hearing about it." The whole table went silent, and I took one look at Kay and knew she was about to go off on Steve. Only it didn't happen the way I thought. Rather than exploding at him, she looked at him very calmly and said that her and Granddad weren't talking about Tess. They were making plans to take him to the Christmas markets. But if he wanted to be a weenie, then no problem. She then went on to say to him that everyone in the family hates him because he's a toxic, narcissistic fuckwad. That whenever he can't come to a family gathering, the whole family is much happier. That there is a reason he has no friends, and that his own family can't stand to be around him. That reason is that he's rotten from the inside out, and that Tess may have only been on this planet for 32 years, but she made a bigger impact on people than he would if he lived until he was 150. That her funeral was rammed with people because she was so loved, whereas he'd be lucky if anyone other than Sarah was at his. After that, she got up and went to the back garden, and I followed her. A few minutes later, my dad came out and said that he'd told Sarah and Steve to leave. We went back inside, and Kay apologized to everyone and said she should have just kept her mouth shut. Everyone other than my mom told her what she had done was right, and it was about time someone told him. My dad then found it hilarious that a homosexual had been the one to tell him straight, which lightened the mood a lot. We spent the rest of the afternoon there before going to pick Jack up from Kay's mom's house, as she had had him overnight on Saturday for us. The reason I'm making this post is that yesterday I got a call from Sarah saying that she and Steve wanted an apology from Kay or they weren't going to Christmas. When I reminded her that we wouldn't be at Christmas either, as it's our year to spend it with Kay's mom, so it made no difference to us. She got really upset, saying that she wanted an apology because Kay was way out of line. I said she wasn't, and that I wouldn't even contemplate asking her to apologize because I agreed with everything she said, and so did everyone else there. She ended the call, and I just went back to work. Then today, my dad called me and asked if Kay's mom would mind a few more for Christmas, as he was refusing to spend it with Steve, so he and my granddad needed somewhere else to go. Apparently, after Sarah had called me, she called Mom and started ranting, and my mom had told my dad to get Kay to apologize, which he said no to, and they had an argument. My dad has now decided that he's done with Steve, even if that affects his relationship with Sarah. He's not having it anymore. My mom wants Sarah there, and she won't go without Steve, so my dad is going somewhere else, and my granddad agreed with him. I texted Kay's mom, and she said they were welcome. So now my mom is furious and saying that my dad and Kay are ripping the family apart. So basically, this has turned into a shoot show. Kay has said she will apologize if I want her to, just to keep the peace, but I've told her no way. Everything she said was true. I just don't know where to go from here. And the people in my life all hate Steve so much that Kay could have physically attacked him, and they would all still think she is in the right. So that's why I'm asking internet strangers who might have had to deal with difficult family members, what can we do to get into a place where we can be around each other amicably? I'm struggling to see a way right now. Now for a few important comments. A commenter said, "For things to be peaceful, both parties need to want it. Kay did nothing wrong. I wouldn't ever spend another moment with Steve. I would let Sarah know I love her and will see her anytime, anywhere, but I'll never see Steve again. If you have one guest that basically wants to shit on the holiday table, there is no path forward with them." In response, OP said, "If it was just Sarah upset, then I wouldn't care, but it's my mum. She tries so hard to keep the whole family together, and she is devastated by what's going on. If it wasn't for her, then Sarah could go take a running jump for all I care right now." When asked about the issue with Steve and Sarah, OP explained, "This is the issue that Steve and Sarah don't see anything wrong in what he's done. It was just him being honest. I would be happier for her to apologize if Steve and Sarah admitted that what he said was in the wrong as well. Without that, I'm being stubborn about it. My dad told Kay he will fall out with her if she apologizes, as she did nothing wrong. There was no screaming or shouting. She said it very calmly. I feel like I'm stuck between making my mom happy and doing what I believe to be right." Regarding his sister, OP added, "My sister doesn't see anything wrong in what he says, as he's just being honest, but loses it when someone is honest back. I don't understand her anymore." Reflecting on his mom's advice, OP shared, "Take the high road and rise above it have been two of my mom's favorite things to say to us over the years. I just feel like enough is enough. He crossed a line this time that he can't come back from. I especially don't want my son around him when he's saying things like that about Tess. If I hear my mom say, 'Take the high road' one more time, I'm going to scream. I'm sick of the high road. I've been on it for 8 years. I'm happy on the low road now." Later that day, OP mentioned, "Well, I've just found out that my granny and pa, my mom's parents, are going to my uncle's for Christmas, and Steve is not invited, so it looks like it's going to be just Mom, Sarah, and Steve for Christmas this year." OP felt vindicated, stating, Vindicated as my mum is like her parents, they're all peacekeepers, and if ever they have had enough, then it just shows that he's not just stepped over the line, he's run right past it. OP also noted Kay's mum has already told her that if she changes her mind, then she is welcome at her house. Even if it's Christmas morning, she is more than welcome. Obviously, Steve and Sarah aren't invited at all, but it's good that my mum has the option at least. Reflecting further, OP realized, I have realized that he has been trying to target Kay and my dad's relationship as they're very close. They have traveled all over the country, visiting classic car shows together, which Steve has tried to get in on, but he doesn't know anything about cars, so there's no point in him going even if they did like him. I actually think he's been trying to push Kay and I out of the family so that he gets my dad to himself, even though my dad can't stand him. Now for the update. Hi, I know how much this community loves an update, so I thought I would give you one, as things seem to be sorting themselves out, kind of. After I wrote my last post, a few things happened in the next couple of hours. First thing was that I spoke to my grandparents on my mom's side. They were there when this all happened, but they're like my mom and just constantly try to keep the peace. That's where she gets it from. They were supposed to be spending Christmas with my mom this year, but had changed their minds and decided to spend it with my uncle instead. They have made the decision to not be around Steve either, as he causes too much drama. They asked if they could come and see us and Jack on the 23rd before they head off to my uncle's, which I happily agreed to. This really surprised me, and it outright shocked my mom, as like I said, they are the biggest take-the-high-road type people I've ever met, but even they'd had enough. The next thing that happened was my dad called to let me know that Steve and Sarah had now decided that they want Kay to make a public apology in front of the whole family and admit she was lying, and that the family loves Steve. He was laughing as he told me this and called them delusional. So any small chance of a superficial apology went out the window. The third thing that happened was Jack getting home from after-school club with a recorder that I am sorely tempted to shove up the teacher's backside. So all in all, it wasn't a great day. Through talking to people on here, I also realized that Steve has been trying to push Kay and I out of the family. Organizing trips that he knows we would be able to go on, we wouldn't have gone on them anyway, as a weekend away with him sounds worse than a paper cut to the eyeball, and him constantly trying to get my dad away from Kay whenever we are all together. I think this is because he is jealous of Kay and Dad's relationship, as they're very close and go on trips to classic car shows several times a year together, usually with my granddad as well. Anyway, things went quiet for a few days until the weekend. Our town has a big Christmas fair that runs from November through December, and we always go to it with Mum, Dad, Granddad, Kay's mum. We decided to cheer my mum up a bit to go on Sunday and then out for dinner after. My mum was told that if Sarah or Steve showed up, then we would all leave, and she promised they wouldn't be there. Things were a bit awkward at first, but settled after a while. At one point, Jack got my mum and dad to take him on the giant snow slide, and as my mum walked back over to us, she had tears in her eyes. I pulled her to one side to see what was going on, and she said that whilst waiting in line, Jack had said he was happy Uncle Steve wasn't here. When my mum asked why, he said that Uncle Steve was a bad man. My mum tried to say that he wasn't, but in typical, stubborn 4-year-old fashion, he had argued and said he learned in school that people who say mean things all the time are bad people, and Uncle Steve said mean things all the time. So, he was a bad man, and that he didn't like him. There had been a case of bullying in his class a few weeks ago, and the teacher had done a lesson on how wrong bullying is. So I think that's where this came from. Let's get into the post. This finally broke through to my mum. If even a 4-year-old can see what a horrible prick the man is, then she had to as well. She said that she felt stuck because she hated Steve and agreed with everything that Kay has said, but she loves Sarah and doesn't want to isolate her. I told her I would always be there for her, but I wasn't putting myself, Jack, or Kay through being around Steve again. And she needed to think about what she wants. Not what I want, or Dad, or Kay, or Jack, or her parents, or Sarah, or Steve. but what she wants. She went quiet and then said that Kay's mom had told her she was welcome at hers for Christmas if she wanted to, and that she could decide on Christmas Day if she wanted. Kay's mom would save her a plate. We went back to the group, and a little while later, I saw Mum and Kay's mom having a deep discussion whilst walking behind us. Neither will say what they talked about, but Mum seemed a bit happier after their talk. They have also been talking since, as yesterday my mum told me that she will be coming to Kay's mum's for Christmas, and they've been talking about going shopping together next week. When Mum told Sarah after calling me, Sarah predictably lost her mind and said that Mum was choosing us over her. My mum told her she was choosing to have a good Christmas rather than being belittled and made miserable all for the sake of Steve and his so-called honesty. Sarah then called me and asked if I was happy that I'd won. She then did the unforgivable and used a few hateful slurs towards me and Kay and called Jack the bastard of an intimacy worker. I ended the call, blocked her everywhere, and then let my family know what had happened and that I never wanted to speak to her again. They're all as appalled as I am, and my Ganny, Mum's mum, called Sarah and apparently told her she was dead to her as she won't have a bigot in the family. Sarah has been trying to reach out to apologize because she knows she has stepped over the unforgivable line, but I've just kept blocking the fake accounts that she's making on IG. Steve tried reaching out to my dad after this, and when he eventually answered, Steve tried to say that Sarah was just angry and didn't mean it. According to Mum, Dad ended up giving him a verbal lashing and told him that he was the worst thing that had ever happened to Sarah and our family. My dad has told Sarah he is disgusted with her, but will be there for her if she leaves Steve. Until then, good luck. Mum has gone low contact as well, but wants to keep the door open so that Sarah isn't completely isolated. I had a few people saying that Steve may be hurtful towards Sarah, but I really don't think he is. He usually acts like a weenie when the attention isn't on him. He knows that when he says dickish things, then all the attention is on him, and he revels in it. After Sarah's outburst, I just think that they're both toxic and feed off each other's toxicity. She lets him get away with the things he says because she gets pleasure out of watching us all bite our tongues and keep quiet. So Mum's angry, Dad's angry, our 3 grandparents are angry, extended family are angry, and Kay is being my rock. But I can tell she's really angry about what she said towards Jack. I'm just sad and done with it all. At least now I know what she really thinks about Jack, Kay, and myself. So there's that. Not the perfect update, but we move on. It will be nice this Christmas to have both sides of the family together for the first time and not have to worry about Steve being a weenie. But I'm sad that this is how my relationship with my sister has ended. I'm trying to get into the Christmas spirit, but it's a tough one right now. The only things that are making me smile are Kay and Jack being goofy idiots to cheer me up. However, the recorder can go to hell. I curse whoever invented the thing, like seriously, frick you. Thanks for all the support in my original post and opening my eyes to a few things. Maybe internet strangers are the way to go for advice after all. Hope you all have a good Christmas holidays. Now for a few important comments. One commenter said, I don't think the dickish brother-in-law and Sarah saga had concluded. I'm glad you'll have a peaceful Christmas in theory. I just think the pair of them are not convinced yet that they're shut out. Then the original poster replied, It wouldn't surprise me if they try and turn up to my parents for Christmas, but we won't be there, so they won't get far. As long as they stay away from me, Kay, and Jack, then I don't care what they do. Another commenter said, May small children playing recorders with more enthusiasm than skill follow Steve everywhere. To which the original poster responded, This just made me laugh a little too hard. Thanks for that. Now for the 1-month update. Hi all, this might be a bit anticlimactic, but nothing much has happened. Sarah stopped trying to reach out to me the first week of December, after one final message through a mutual friend saying that she loves me and is sorry. My dad has spoken to her once on Christmas Eve to wish her and her alone a Merry Christmas. My mum has spoken to her a few times and had breakfast with her on Christmas Eve, but that's it. As far as I'm aware, Steve and Sarah spent Christmas at their house alone. I do know they went to a party on Boxing Day with one of Sarah's friends, and Steve was on his best behavior according to someone I know who was there. Maybe he's learning, who knows. I did have a few people asking about why Steve and his family don't speak. And after talking to my dad, I found out that Steve said something to his brother's wife at a family gathering that led to his brother and him having a huge argument that turned physical. After that, Steve's brother refused to have him around himself, his wife, or his kids, so Steve's mom and dad told him he wasn't welcome to family events anymore, and they went very low contact with him. He apparently gets a phone call on his birthday and Christmas, but that's about it. My dad was told this by Sarah, who was there when it happened. As per usual, she tried to downplay the whole thing and say that Steve's family were overreacting. Sounds oddly familiar. We spent Christmas at Kay's mom's house, and my mom, dad, and granddad all came as well. My mom and Kay's mom haven't ever really spent a lot of time together, but they have been recently, and they've become good friends, meeting up for lunch and going shopping together a few times. It's a bit of an odd pairing, as my mom is very straight-laced, and Kay's mom was a punk when she was younger and now is really into Wicca and natural healing. Seeing my mom dressed in her Sunday best and Kay's mom in her intimacy Pistols hoodie is an odd sight, but they get along great, so that's nice. Christmas overall was good, nothing special, just relaxing. Without Steve being around, there was no need to be on edge. Jack was very spoilt and loved every second of it. I'll be honest and say I miss my sister a lot, and part of me really wanted to call her on Christmas Day, but I know I can't have her in my life right now. That's about it, really. All very boring. I still want to launch Jack's recorder into the sun, but he loves it, and his rendition of London's Burning is improving. Listening to 26, 4, and 5-year-olds enthusiastically try to play London's Burning on recorder at the Christmas nativity play was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. That got the biggest cheer of the night, that's for sure. I hope everyone had a great holidays and has a brilliant new year. Now for a final comment, one commenter said, "This is not a recommendation. However, a dog can really do a number on a recorder. Great chew toy. Just saying." Funny you should say that. We have been offered a rescue puppy that will be ready in a few weeks. So if we get one, then he or she could solve our problems. Am I the idiot for laughing at my sister's baby name choice and sparking a family intervention? My sister is due in early January, and we're planning her baby shower for early December. She decided she wanted to use my mother's maiden name, Rafferty, as her daughter's name. Not a tragedy itself, and I guess it works as a unique name. But yesterday, I texted my sister that I needed to get the custom items with my niece's name ordered ASAP so they arrive in time for the shower. My sister then let me know they're going with an alternative spelling of Rafferty. I texted back, "An alternative spelling of our mother's maiden name?" My sister wants to spell it Rayfarty. So I sent back a bunch of laughing emojis, and she asked, "What's so funny?" I tried to explain that no one will pronounce that as Rafferty, and she'll probably get plenty of the same mispronunciations. She told me I was being ridiculous. I texted back, "My poor niece, little Miss Farty Ray, I was uninvited to the shower and my mom told me today my sister doesn't want me as the godmother anymore. But like Ray Farty is really bad, isn't it? Someone needs to tell her, right?" Now for a few comments. One commenter said, "Yup, it's Ray Farty no matter what sis wants to believe," to which I replied, "Thank you." Another commenter joked, "Ray Farty, MGM, expected release 2025. A hard-boiled detective living and working in the heart of Pittsburgh's Sulphur District is tasked with investigating the theft of 12,000 durians. In an unexpected twist, the alleged mastermind of the crime, the CEO of Chipotle, was also Ray's high school chemistry teacher." I responded, "OMG, I needed this." A different commenter asked, "That's terrible. She is going to hate her name. Out of curiosity, how old is your sister?" I answered, "My sister is 26. We both have fairly plain names, and my sister was always jealous of people with more exotic names. She told my mom that spelling it Rayfarty will be obvious that it's pronounced Rafferty, but it makes it look more girly. I mean, yeah, girls fart too." Another commenter mentioned, Rafferty comes under the category of names I wouldn't use. Not a big fan of surnames as first names, but which I can see tick some boxes that would make them appealing to some people. Honors your mom, sounds gender neutral, could use the nickname Raff. Raffarty comes under the category of names that sound like jokes. No wonder you laughed. Do what you can to dissuade her. Everyone's going to pronounce it Raffarty, I replied. I agree. I wouldn't use it myself, but I get that it honors my mom and her family, and it's not too out there. Thank God my mother wasn't born a Lewandowski. No offense to the Lewandowskis out there. My mom is mildly annoyed she wants to honor her last name but totally respell it. But my mother's opinion is that it's my sister's child, and no one but she and her husband really have a say in the name. Apparently, my sister insists everyone will understand it as Rafferty and not Raffarty, Semdich. When asked about her brother-in-law, I said, I texted him last night to ask if he knew about the colorful respelling. Surprise, surprise, he hates it and immediately thinks Raffarty too. But he doesn't know how to approach it because my sister's pregnancy has been increasingly emotional and he's already walking on eggshells. Now for the update. We had an intervention on Raffarty. First, for those saying I shouldn't bother paying for the baby shower anymore, I had no plans to not continue to pay and help out. Disagreements and fighting aside, I love my sister and want her to go into motherhood filled with love and support, regardless of whether she wants my support or attendance at the event. Second, my sister's husband was made aware of the spelling change of Rafferty to Raffarty about a month before my original post. He said he didn't think much of it until he saw it written down and immediately saw it as Raffarty too. He said her emotions had been getting worse throughout the pregnancy, and he didn't know how to approach her about going back to the original spelling. He had hoped that once she gave birth, all the hormones would somehow leave her body. She'd come to her senses, and it would be a non-issue. Third, a lot of you were lumping my mom in with my sister and said some pretty horrible things about her too. All my mom knew was from my sister calling her to complain that I laughed at her for slightly changing the spelling. My mom just assumed it was a minor change like Rafferty until I told her to grab a pen and paper and I'd spell it out for her. Once she saw it was Raffarty, she was Team Save This Child. The rest of the saga is in the comments. The rest. For those of you who told me I didn't have any tact and my reaction was mean, my reaction was because 1, people would call the poor girl Raffarty her entire life for the sake of my sister being quirky. 2, pregnancy brain aside, surely my sister would realize her child will be called Raffarty once it's pointed out, have a laugh, change her mind, and this will end up being a funny story to tell at her daughter's future wedding or something. And 3, my sister is a bit of a joker, so I also initially thought she was just pulling a prank or joking. But if she was joking, she took the joke really, really far. She spent $400 on a mural painted on one wall in the nursery. She wanted to debut the finished nursery to everyone at the baby shower, including her husband, who was forbidden to see it beforehand, that had Raffarty incorporated into it that now needs to be repainted. She also bought herself a birthing gift. Is this even a thing? She'd have my brother-in-law present to her in front of everyone at the hospital. A $900 gold bracelet with R, A, E, F, A, R, T, and Y charms. The baby book also has Raffarty embroidered on the cover. I contacted my sister's best friend Katie, not her real name, if my sister has told her anything about the spelling change. She found out about Raffarty after the blow-up with my sister, as my sister wanted to get Katie on her side. Katie, who's a teacher, was equally horrified about the spelling and told me this is the worst attempt at a creative name she's ever seen. The intervention of sorts, the farty party, if you will, included me, my sister, her husband, his mother and father, my mother, and Katie. My sister refused to believe anyone could possibly see Raffarty as Raffarty, and that we were just mad that she was taking creative license and that everyone does that nowadays. My sister said, children are not that cruel to bully her daughter for her name. And Katie said plenty of kids are cruel enough, and the others would join in, so they're not singled out themselves. My sister countered that as long as all the adults are pronouncing it correctly, that it'll be no problem. and Katie told her that not only would the adults not know how to pronounce it to begin with, but that as long as fart is in the name, kids will latch right onto that. I was happy Katie was there because she shared interesting names her students have had over the past few years, so I knew her opinion on this would probably be the only one to sway her. My sister cried for about 10 minutes and finally agreed to entirely change the name because even Rafferty was tainted because we had all ruined it for her. We told her to take her time to consider a new name. She told us she still wanted to honor my mother, and she suggested she'd combine my mother's first name with her mother-in-law's name and created a name on the spot that included a crass term for a homosexual. When my mother pointed that out, she started crying again and accused us of not letting her be a mom, and her husband suggested we leave it for now and we should all go and give her space. It's been radio silence until my sister texted me a couple of hours ago that she and her husband landed on Theodora, and she is absolutely in love with it. She even decided my unborn niece looks like a Theodora in the ultrasounds. She got those creepy 3D ones done where every baby looks like the same copper potato. I replied that that was lovely and that I'm so happy she's happy. It's not my taste, but at least it's not Theodoro or some crap like that. So there you go. My niece has been saved from being called Ray Farty. I'm invited to the baby shower again, and I know this is just a little blip with my relationship to my sister and we'll be fine, but Katie will be taking over as godmother, which is fine by me. I can always be godmother to their next child, who will probably be named something like Taram Sue. Thank you all for seeing the same thing I did and letting me know stopping Ray Farty from coming into existence was the right thing to do. Now for a few comments. One commenter said, she also bought herself a birthing gift. Is this even a thing? She'd have my brother-in-law present to her in front of everyone at the hospital. Another added, what the actual frick? Silly name aside, what is this? Some kind of social media-fueled, look at me and how wonderful I am to get a gift as a reward for giving birth. This feels very tacky to me. The whole push present concept gives me the ick. Then I replied, I agree. I've never heard of this before and it seems crazy. But also, if I ever ruin my body and push out a watermelon, I'd kind of want a reward too, though. Another commenter asked, pretty please tell us the amalgamation of her mother and mother-in-law's names. I responded, there's probably no anonymity left on this situation, so here it goes. My mom is Leslie, sister's mother-in-law is Yvonne. The name was Les Yvonne, pronounced Les Yvonne. Like my niece is the homosexual baroness of some German village. I'll have the staff prepare the Birkenstocks for Leslie von Fartenberg's arrival. Now for the 1.5-month update. I don't know if you remember my post from a few weeks back about my sister wanting to name my niece Ray Farty, pronounced Rafferty, and not at all like Ray Farty. My niece has been born 2 weeks earlier than expected, but she is healthy and home now. When my sister first held her, she said, she's so adorable, and got an idea. She wanted to change from Theodora to Theodorable. Thankfully, my brother-in-law put his foot down. He did give her carte blanche on the middle name. When it was supposed to be Rafferty, they went with Rose to counterbalance Rafferty being different. Now that Theodora was the normal name, and because my sister just cannot not be extra, she chose Jacksonville. Theodora Jacksonville. A Ray Farty rose by any other name would smell as sweet. We are not from Florida. Brother-in-law is not from Florida. I don't think my sister's ever been to Florida, much less to Jacksonville. I asked her how she came up with it, and she said she always liked geographical names, which is news to me because I specifically remember a conversation about names months ago, and she said she hated when parents name their kids place names like Camden or Brooklyn because they're trying way too hard. But you do you, Ray Farty's mom. Also, our city has a pretty sizable Polish-American population, and people will certainly try to pronounce it like it's a Polish last name, but at least the craziness is confined to the middle name, and there's no gas or slurs involved. Now for some more comments. One commenter said, thanks for the update on Ray Farty. At least it's a middle name. And thank goodness brother-in-law stopped the other craziness. I replied, props to my brother-in-law this time around. He said the look on the nurse's face when my sister suggested Theodorable was all he needed. Low. Another commenter added, the entire internet remembers Ray Farty. Your sister is a legend, but that middle name, though, a full-on tragedy. I responded, when we heard the name, my mother warned me, let's not go through this again. It's just the middle name. So I behaved myself. Someone else asked, does your sister understand the legacy she has created? I replied, a few people know about the post, but I don't think she does, or is too embarrassed to admit she knows. But she's not really on social media much except for water talk vids. Finally, another commenter noted, it has even made its way to TikTok. I replied, surely she must know by now. Sorry, not sorry. I did what I needed to do to save Miss Farty Ray. Am I the idiot for suspecting my wife of cheating after her pregnancy despite my vasectomy? My wife just found out she's pregnant, and I had a vasectomy 10 years ago. I had a vasectomy during my first marriage after having 3 kids. I got married last year after 3 years of dating. My wife has never given me any reason to believe she is cheating. I work from home, and we always have our locations on our iPhones. I've noticed no secretive or suspicious behavior. When we first found out, she was incredibly shocked, but ultimately very happy, saying she guessed the vasectomy failed. I've Googled it, and there's about a 1% probability of this happening. So I have 2 choices. Ask my wife for a paternity test and either confirm my suspicions or shatter her trust, or say nothing and live with suspicion until our child is born and I can perform a paternity test quietly. I'm so torn up about this. My wife is already planning the nursery, and I'm wondering if I should be hating her or myself. Now for a few important comments. A commenter suggested calling my doctor to get a sperm count to see if I'm remotely fertile before confronting her. I realized this was the right thing to do. I've been so stressed out and shocked that I haven't been thinking clearly. Another commenter mentioned that they wouldn't be insulted if their partner wanted a paternity test, considering the circumstances. But I know my wife would be extremely hurt. Someone else suggested that my wife needs to know about my dilemma, but I don't want to put this kind of stress on her. She's still in her first trimester, and if anything happened to this pregnancy, she would be brokenhearted. I love her and don't want to hurt her. If the vasectomy really did fail and I effectively accused her of cheating, our marriage would be severely impacted at a time when our partnership is more important than ever. Now for the 1-month update. I took everyone's advice and got the vasectomy checked. My doctor told me my sperm count is very low, but there are still sperm present. It explains why we've been having unprotected intimacy for years without a problem, but also why my wife is now pregnant. I was equal parts relieved and ashamed of myself. My wife is a wonderful person, and I suspected her of cheating before suspecting an issue with the vasectomy. I've thought about coming clean to my wife, but she's so happy and excited. Our relationship is the best it's ever been, and I don't think it's right to burst her bubble to alleviate my own guilt. All I can do is be the best husband I can be through this pregnancy and get ready to be a dad at 46. Now for a few more comments. One commenter said it's understandable to suspect cheating given the circumstances, and I shouldn't beat myself up over it. They said I didn't do anything wrong by coming to that conclusion based on the evidence at hand. I appreciate that. My kids are all teens and excited for the baby as well. It's a truly happy time for my family, and I just want to keep that joy going. Another commenter asked if I would get snipped again. I said maybe eventually, but right now I want to focus on us. When we met, I told my wife kids were off the table. At the time, she was rather ambivalent to having them, so it wasn't a hard condition to accept. Now that she's pregnant and I see the joy it brings her, I'm so happy this happened. That being said, I'm absolutely going to get re-snipped after the baby is born.